Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Malasari, and today me and my groups are going to present about one article. The title of the article is um, Othering Others, a Right-Wing Populism in UK Media Discourse on New Immigration by Grace E. Fielder and Theresa Catalano. Okay, first I already introduced about myself and two more friends of me. They are Ismi Salma Murti and Jose Chandra. Next, please. Okay, first of all, the part of this article, there are four parts. First is the introduction, second is the literature review, third methods, and fourth is findings and conclusion. Next, please. Okay, let's start from the introduction. This paper analyzes the persuasive authoring strategies deployed in online discussion forums, especially online comments that respond to a newspaper article on the lifting of work restriction in the UA for Bulgarian and Romanian citizens on January 2014. Arguing that reader comments reflect the othering discourse typical of populist right-wing groups. This article combines conversation analysis or CA and critical discourse analysis or CDA to focus on the consumption and reproduction of these discourses by the reading public, since discourse not only reflects the world around us but constructs it as well. Next. The authors ascribe to Van Dijk's definition of racism as a social system of domain that is of a specific kind of power of one group over another group, in our case of Europeans or whites over non-European people. As the authors will demonstrate in our analysis, othering is a reflexive move with the floating signifier as target. Next. Okay. Mm, Next is the literature review. The right-wing populism. The first is populism can be defined as a general protest against the checks and balances introduced or to prevent the people's direct rule. Modern populism has been characterized by protest movements that express disillusion and disappointment with the established system and aim for a better and more real democracy that truly represents the people. The B is the fact that populism assumes a type of self-evidence for the inclusion and exclusion from people that leads to the connection of a right-wing populism to othering. Othering is a recurring strategy of right-wing populist discourse in which members seek to differentiate us from them by first establishing a positive us and then showing how they are different through the attribution of negative traits. Next. Okay, next is the commands. Commands used to be used in the singular is not just a way we express our opinion online. It's our own genre of communication. It is social, meant to be seen by others, and reactive. Referred to as the bottom of the web, comments is easily seen but invisible and taken for granted, and people after prefer not to look into this. Online reflecting glass of humanity, and comments provides us to with a sample of what some people think, and as a characteristic of contemporary life, comment can inform, improve, and shape people for the better, or it can alienate, manipulate, and shape people for the worse. Next. Okay, next move to the methods in this article. First is the data collection. The final article chosen for analysis was selected on the basis of three criteria. First is the topic, work restriction lifted for Bulgaria and Romania, effects on the UK. Second is the time period from the January to February 2014. And third is comments. The article needed to contain a sufficient number of comments to make up a substantial corpus. Next, please. Okay, and next, the article chosen for analysis is entitled Number of Romanian and Bulgarian Workers Reaches a Record High, and was published in the UK online version of the Telegraph on 19 February 2014. The article goes on to discuss the steady increase in the number of Romanian and Bulgarian workers in the UK, the public anxiety that the government is attempting to quell, and how the UK benefit system must be protected. It also features a photograph of crowded border control entry at an airport with many people in line waiting to enter the UK. Next. Okay, and data analysis. The next is the close reading of 263 comments by tech consumers in which salient elements and themes and were highlighted and notes made in track changes. And the next is the authors then consider the intertextuality and interdiscursivity of the comments. Okay, and the data was organized into themes related to the types of the ordering that occurred, and then and then the author examined and explained the discursive strategies used to others, such as referential or nomination, predicational argumentation, perspectivization, intensifying and mitigating strategies. The authors examine strategies that allow commenters to present negative views of outsiders as acceptable while at the same time projecting the commenter from charges of racism and prejudice. Okay. And this include the credibility exchanges devices such as the station of authority, consensual and corroborative satisfying, quantification of use of facts. And the authors also look at the conversations in terms of how identities are formed and constitute through linguistic interaction referred to identity in use, and how commenters and community identities are built through station of authority, evidence, and authors and other arguments. And in the next section, the comments are organized chronologically according with traditional CA practice in order to analyze the conversational turns, thereby providing a window into the dialogue nature of online social media chats. At the same time, the authors characterize this chronologically ordered comment by themes or strategies that appear to be practically salient for specific group or of interactions so that we can explain the types of strategies used along the way and demonstrate how these strategies are used to other Romanians and Bulgarians immigrants. And the authors connect the othering others, right-wing populism in UK media, Discourse 215. This not only to historical right-wing populism, but also to its recent resurgence in Europe and the use of trolls as persuasive vehicles for populist discourse on social media. Okay, next will be presented by my friend Ismi Salma Murti. Time is yours.
Thank you, Chitra. My name is Ismi, and I will tell you about findings in this analysis. In findings, there are six parts. There are othering begins, othering banner tree, othering the EU, and then migrants equal Roma equal crime, disclaimers, and the last self-policing. I will explain the first four only because the other two will be explained by my friend later on. The othering begins. This analysis begins with the opening comment, which immediately positions immigrants as the reason for inefficient social services. The comment by the Cutsman clearly responds to the underlying ideology of the original article. which points out that the government is taking decisive steps on welfare and immigration to protect the UK benefit system. This argumentation strategy, which incorporates the topos of burden in the sense that UK citizens can get services because immigrants are using up all our resources, hence, immigrants as a burden on UK citizens, is a recurrent theme in our data. Not surprisingly, since Gills notes that the OP, sometimes called the original post by Smithson 2011, influences the discussion thread in a way that departs significantly from the opening exchanges in a spoken conversation. The opening contributor assigns a topic or theme to the thread to which he or she expects other members to adhere throughout, and following the previous point about earlier thread material being permanently available, members generally do remain on topic. In this comment by Banerjee, he positions himself as the voice of reason by providing facts to counter anti-immigrant comments. Note, however, that he receives only 4 votes in comparison to the first comment, which received 62 votes. The voting system, which commenters can vote for a comment they like, is a digital tool that allows us to gauge the positive or negative reaction to comments by other viewers who may be choosing not to post but are engaging digitally with the discussion. Buffrong 2012 used the term polylogal to characterize this multiplicity of participants at any given time in online communication. Giles in 2016 also argues that such communication is doubly articulated in the sense that, in addition to the discussants who are visibly contributing to the thread, there is an unseen audience consisting of other forum members who are free to enter the thread if they so wish, as well as casual visitors, all of whom can be potentially addressed by the discussants. Thus, the fluctuation in the number of votes provides us with a window into the construction of the online community, specifically traces of the unseen audience. Uh, Previous slide, please. Audience who then evaluate posts and posters as inside or outside the imagined community. The drop from 62 votes to 4 votes is the equivalence of silence, or what Pomeranz in 1984 termed a dispreference marker. Thus, Banerjee is positioned as an outsider by the voting audience, and not surprisingly, is othered through sarcasm. Next, please. Othering Banerjee. In this section, Banerjee deserves a special mention because he consistently tries to argue the facts and counter the othering discourse with the reason, but he himself is constantly othered in various ways, which he persistently resists. Finlay in 2007 refers to people such as Banerjee as enemies within, in that they are in-group members who do not share an extreme right ideology, and hence they are labeled as traitors that act to destroy their own people. By constructing Banerjee as betraying ordinary people, in-group members can distance themselves from being labeled as a racist. In the excerpts below, Banerjee comments are discounted by other contributors not on the basis of the facts he presents, but on the basis of his purported political affiliation. Since he does not agree with the othering comments, he must be one of the elites who are responsible for the crisis. Next, please. In the following comment, predication strategies are used. Attribute negative threats to Banerjee. Emily Enso is probably a UKIP troll, or at least makes explicit that the concerns that UK is being taken over by others. Note that the metaphors of war, as mentioned in Catalano and Filter 2014, and that EU immigrants are even voting for anti-British policies. This post gets at the root cause of one of basic fears, namely that the UK government is being taken away from real British. It no longer represents true British interest. Next, please. In this, next, please. Here, we see an example of othering, in which moral codes and inferiority are attached to difference, points out that this type of othering, in which difference is represented as negative, allows the majority group to other those who differ for whatever reason, in this case ideologically, results in normalizing the majority group. Incivilities such as this directly ties to othering, but also normalizes incivility. Banerjee responds by reversing the accusations, but because the power distribution is not in his favor, he is outnumbered on the side by right-wing populists. By right-wing populists, this will not affect Bob's identity Next, please. Next. Then the next section is migrants equal Roma equal crime with some dialogue examples. The conversation now moves back toward providing credibility, enhancing the devices that make othering of outsiders acceptable and protect the commenters from being seen as racist. Below, Sapporo posts his conspiracy theory about the reality of EU immigration into Britain and overtly others Roma. Conspiracy theories are an important piece of the right wing populist toolkit, and the idea that Roma are coming to the UK to take all the benefits is a collective memory and nostalgia tactic which builds on media discourse that has historically described Roma as parasitic burdens leeching off the ordinary people. Sapporo also confuses Romanian and Roma, although this confusion seems to be superficial. Note also the reappearance of the topos of burden argumentation, strategy, and the new connection made specifically to Roma rather than all immigrants. Additionally, the mention of the political or media elite constructs intellectuals, journalists as common enemies is evidence of anti-intellectualism. Next, please. The fallacy presented above is effective, but might surprise Germany, who is in actuality ranked first for accepting migrants, while Britain is ranked seventh. Europe's immigrant acceptance rates 2015. The next examples illustrate the argumentation strategy of logical deduction to justify immigration controls. Bob Evans takes a personal perspective and vouches for his assessment, producing yet another fallacy. Next, please. The responses to Bob Evans and their popularity or votes is telling. For the most part, he is supported, and those who disagree get relatively few votes. We can see from the comments by Bob Evans, he has 64 votes. Next, please. The above discourse is a glimpse into how false stereotypes and ideas spread and become stronger through online discussions. For example, the empirically proven false idea that more immigration means more crime by Catalano 2013 and Rumbaud and Ewing 2007. This demonstrates how online commenting sites can be breeding grounds for discourse that feeds on hate and neglects the importance of facts. Next, please. The next will be presented by my friend Jose. The time is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Ismi. So now, disclaimers. The next phase is in the online conversation ramps up the theoretic to a more racist tenor. In the following examples, there is explicit linking of immigration to the dilution of the population of real breeds. The point in the conversation where the scatological metaphors become more intense as part of argumentation strategies, which claim that the situation is so extreme now that exclusionary policies are justified. So this is the example of the comment. You can see in the screen. This is also the example of the comment. So another comment turns victims into aggressor and vice versa because the indigenous families or sick will supposedly suffer from one-child policies imposed on them because of migrants. It also illustrates as a revitalized founding myth which serves to legitimize the idea of a pure people who belong to a clearly defined nation state, according to Wodak 2015 in page 37. According to Jiwani and Richardson, 2011, adapted to Van Dyke, 1997, disclaimer are semantic maneuvers that combine the ideological square with denials. Example, I have nothing against immigrants, but next is concession. For example, of course, some Muslims are tolerant, but next is apparent empathy. For examples, of course, asylum seekers endure hardships, but uh, next is ignorance. For example, now I don't know all the facts, but next is reversal. For example, we are the real victims in this. And last is transfers. For example, of course, I have nothing against them, but my customers, blah, blah, blah. So next is, in the next phase of the, next is self-policing. In the next phase of the polylogue, text consumers argue over who has the right to contribute to the discussion and who does not, based on membership to the imagined community, according to Anderson 2006 of indigenous British people. Now we see a different kind of othering when a non-British female participant, Elena Urda, attempts to join the conversation in response to a particularly offensive comment by a self-identified expat whose right to pose, however, is not challenged. This is the example of the comments. You can see on the screen. You can see Elena Urda replied the Liam expat. Above, metaphor is used to erase the humanity of Central Europeans, aka Roma, by referring to them as a type of human excrement and thus contaminated water. The comparison of water and, more importantly, contaminated water of two immigrants and in particular Roma is repeated throughout the data and always with the same meaning. The immigrants are the water that is dangerous and we must stop it before it causes harm or damage. Zenken refers to these types of metaphors as discourse metaphors because they point to a crucial nexus between language use and habitual analogies 2007. Another example of comment on this you can see on the screen. This is another example of comment, and notice how some comments are deleted. Comments are posted that are deleted by the moderators. We can assume that these comments were inflammatory, and at this point, Rosie joins in and demands to know how many English speakers there are in Romania. This is a clear example of flaming, which can be defined as online verbal aggression, according to Lainaste, but also the communication of emotion that includes the use of profanity, insults, and other offensive or hurtful statements, according to Johnson, Cooper, and Chin. Flaming is used for a variety of reasons, including to get a rise out of other posters, but it is also often a side effect of the anonymous nature of online commenting. However, according to Santana Fajala, this is another example of comments on Paul Susiu. This is also the comments you can see on the screen. Gas and Paul, through the metaphor of nation is a container, refine their identities as being in or out of the container using the exist to establish who the country belongs to and who is part of we the people. Paul then explained that he is on the side so he can challenge right-wing rhetoric in a democratic fashion and avoid violence. This example is also the first time an outsider has got 10 more votes than one who others, although 8 versus 5 is hardly statistically significant. So we are going to conclusion. In this paper, we uncovered various types of othering in the data, and we exposed the numerous discursive strategies used in right-wing populist discourses that capitalize on othering to persuade and excite voters, as well as express their own identities. How both and how both a CA and CDA approach to discourse analysis can be deployed in the analysis of an online discussion forum to reveal the various othering strategies such as referential, nomination, predicational, argumentation, perspectivication, and intensifying and mitigating used by participants to position themselves and others in relation to each other and the real world. Overall, over the course of the discussion forum, the discourse escalates from what we can call prejudicial about nationality and ethnicity to explicitly racist discourse, clearly illustrated by the last posting before the discussion was closed. These discourse metaphors are important to recognize because they document a midway point on the slippery slope to entrenched and completely naturalized metaphor that become a conventional and unquestioned way of thinking about trauma that is always taken as fact. So thank you. That's all from us. Thank you for listening and have a good day.